May I suggest respectfully that Ticketmaster ought to look in the mirror and say, I'm the problem. It's me.
Welcome to MsMojo. And today, we're looking at how Ticketmaster came to dominate the ticket retail industry, as well as what recent legal consequences could mean for live music and beyond.
We thought we'd try and explain exactly why Bad Bunny tickets are so expensive, who is making money off them, and what you might be able to do about it that does not involve selling your husband's feet.
It was around the 2020s when the term Ticketmaster effect entered online discussions about the ticket retailer's impact on the structure and market of the live event industry. But the phenomenon dates back to Fred Rosen's push for dominance as the company's CEO in the 1990s.
The truth was, it was a great business, it was a lot of fun, and you had a chance to create a solar system that had never been done before.
He believed that concert tickets were, quote, the most underpriced commodity in America. Now, it's considered one of the most overpriced. And much of the blame falls on Live Nation Entertainment, controlling roughly 70% of that market.
It owns, operates, has a stake in, or exclusively books shows for around 390 venues across more than 50 countries. From amphitheaters to the House of Blues. It also has a controlling stake in festivals like Lollapalooza and Bonnaroo.
On May 23, 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice filed an antitrust suit that could finally break the company's open monopoly. But this could have consequences on an entire industry that Ticketmaster has long manipulated.
Of course, they own the ticket company, but they might also own the promoter, the venue, and could even manage the artist.
Master plan. 4 men in Phoenix, Arizona founded Ticketmaster in 1976 to license computer ticketing systems. The modest startup didn't stand a chance against industry leader Ticketron, but after investor Jay Pritzker bought them in 1982, he appointed Fred Rosen to lead an aggressive expansion from the new headquarters in Los Angeles.
In those days, the business was driven by very low service charges and very low service. So nobody saw the ticket business as a real business. They saw it, the Ticketron mentality is we're a utility.
The plan was to secure exclusivity contracts with major venues and promoters through incentives that imposed higher fees on customers. Where Ticketron took less than $1 in service fees, Ticketmaster's surcharge was over $2 per transaction.
Handling charge, just to touch it, they charge you $3.
Fans complained, but venues signed on because, and this was the key part, Ticketmaster let those venues keep most of the fee.
They bought their main competitor in 1991, thus gaining control of 80% of the concert ticketing market. They've always been at the forefront of the industry's now dominant online retail sector. They've also always represented the exploitation that comes with such business practices.
Can't go into most of the venues that we would normally play in, so we can't go to most of the cities we would normally go to.
That, Pearl Jam claims, is because the best-known sites have exclusive contracts with Ticketmaster. If they don't sell the tickets, you don't play there.
Ticket to court. It wasn't a competitor, consumer, or government agency to first take Ticketmaster to court. It was Pearl Jam, who in 1994 tried to take a stand against the company's pricing policies.
Pearl Jam wanted to cap its ticket price at $20, asking Ticketmaster to limit its service charge to $1.80. The band says the stalemate that resulted has kept them off the road this summer. Ticketmaster says Pearl Jam won't compromise.
When Ticketmaster refused, the band took a $3 million hit to prematurely cancel their tour, then filed an antitrust complaint with the DOJ. They testified before Congress that the company leveraged their position to secure contracts and inflate prices.
Do you think Ticketmaster's entitled to a profit? I think our main concern is, are we entitled to use a different company other than Ticketmaster?
One of the biggest bands in the world struggled to book even small shows when they boycotted Ticketmaster for their '95 tour. A year after the DOJ dropped their investigation, Ticketmaster LLC went public with a $2.8 billion valuation, just in time for online sales and international expansion. Pearl Jam's noble crusade ultimately just made the company legally untouchable for 2 decades.
Let me just leave you with this observation. When art is successful, it unavoidably becomes a business. The question then is whether artists have an inherent right to control the limits of their business and how it relates to the growth of their art.
Dominating the charts. Ticketmaster's Michael Rapino era saw the acquisition of the reseller Tickets Now and leading talent management group Frontline. Their most controversial move came in 2010. when a merger with the event promoter Live Nation formed the conglomerate Live Nation Entertainment. They were no longer brokering the price of admission, they were literally running the shows.
When you have that type of integration, it can create certain types of conflicts of interest. At the time, there was a concern that Ticketmaster might use its position to tie those things together and to say, well, in order to have access to this venue, you actually have to use our ticketing site.
The DOJ's approval came with a consent decree that prevented exclusive ownership of software and subsidiaries for 10 years. Still, the company's pressure on competition was felt across all live event industries.
It has control over everything from which venues artists play to who can actually buy tickets and when. A lot of artists and venue operators haven't really had the ability to speak out about it for fear of being blacklisted.
In 2015, the NBA team Golden State Warriors announced a policy that would void season tickets resold outside of a Ticketmaster exchange. StubHub responded by hitting Ticketmaster with their first antitrust suit since the Pearl Jam episode. The judge, dismissing allegations of a conspiracy to intimidate consumers, set a dangerous precedent for Live Nation's anti-competition tactics.
If you've bought a ticket anytime recently, you know by paying those super competitive charges for access to tickets that there's a monopolist there, and that monopolist is exercising their monopoly power.
Ticket market. In 2024, CBS News reported that ticket prices had increased 140% since the launch of Live Nation Entertainment. In that time, the entertainment industry had been drastically altered by piracy, streaming, and expanding concert productions. But 80% of its most lucrative sector being controlled by one company can't be discounted, pun intended.
It's diverse, spread across amphitheaters, clubs, theaters, and stadiums. So our business ongoing all the time is kind of this diverse portfolio across a global portfolio also.
Since its inception, LNE has established or acquired dozens of international subsidiaries in the ticketing, venue, and management industries. Competitors of Ticketmaster alone have a better chance of survival as a second-hand retailer than as a primary ticket vendor.
There's really no one that's been able to get the type of scale that Live Nation has. The closest comparable is Antitrust Entertainment Group, with their own kind of internal ticketing platform. But, they made a statement that speaks to the market power of Ticketmaster, which is that they used Ticketmaster to ticket Taylor Swift.
By the time the DOJ's consent decree expired in 2020, it was apparent that LNE had used predatory tactics beyond its market status to eliminate competition. The response at the time was merely to extend the decree, with stricter compliance guidelines and a $1 million penalty per violation. What was that to a company that was worth over $15 billion by the end of that year?
For you? Come on, you can cough it up.
All right, let's call it $1 million. What the heck?
Scalping off the top. There's compelling evidence of illegal practices to maintain Ticketmaster's market stronghold. This includes violating their consent decree by locking venues into egregiously long exclusivity contracts and penalizing them for signing with competitors. More recently, they've deliberately limited oversight of algorithms that inflate prices based on demand. Perhaps the most sinister allegations relate to the age-old hustle of brokers buying up tickets to grossly upsell them. Scalping has evolved in the digital age to the point of using bots to practically industrialize this process.
So that's Ticketmaster telling us that they have brokers who have hundreds of Ticketmaster fake accounts, and they don't care that they're using those fake accounts to buy up all the tickets and then repost them for resale, so long as Ticketmaster's getting a cut, of course.
In 2018, CBC and the Toronto Star collaborated on a probe which found that Ticketmaster allowed scalpers to use the bots if they resold on their platform. While LNE has denied collusion, it's harder to argue that business as usual is responsible for consumers' stress. The fees have become so massive that they're popularly referred to as a Ticketmaster tax.
This is the Chicago ticket. You can see one ticket is going for $2,659. It has a service fee tacked onto it at $618. That's a 23% service charge.
Standing room. In 1994, Pearl Jam brought the force of the U.S. government over their tickets not costing around $20 total. For Taylor Swift's 2023 Eras Tour, the median ticket price was over $250 before fees. And the markup on the secondary market was over 2,000%.
I love Taylor so much and I want to be there so badly, but that is such a huge financial burden.
Ticketmaster was already facing controversy over online traffic crashing their website when pre-sales went live, with no alternate retailer. All of this represented the cruelest flaws of a system that one company has practically dictated for decades. So in 2022, 26 customers filed a class action suit alleging that L&E artificially inflated prices, colluded with scalpers, and violated their consent decree.
Now, plaintiffs hoping to break up what they believe is a monopoly, demanding $2,500 for each violation.
The tickets are so overpriced that the average person isn't going to be able to go anymore.
The ensuing public outcry led to the DOJ and 40 states filing an antitrust suit, then the Federal Trade Commission taking legal action with 7 states. Consumers finally taking a stand against their alleged exploitation made this happen, but with L&E's hold on a massive industry, what would be the consequences of their loss?
It is time for fans and artists to stop paying the price for Live Nation's monopoly. It is time to restore competition and innovation in the entertainment industry.
Closing act. Live Nation Entertainment currently promotes over 70% of U.S. tours, contracts around 400 venues, and controls roughly 70% of the ticketing market. The U.S. government has made strides to reel in this open monopoly's more predatory methods.
Musicians lower their prices so that their fans can get in, and that means that on these secondary markets, brokers and the secondary markets like Ticketmaster got to pocket those profits. It's totally unfair, it's totally wrong, it's also illegal. That's why we're in court.
The FTC's rule on unfair or deceptive fees requires businesses to state all-in prices up front. This cracks down on Ticketmaster's alleged bait-and-switch scam of introducing junk fees at checkout.
If this proposed rule is finalized as proposed, the FTC would have the power to impose financial penalties on companies that don't disclose their full upfront price and secure refunds for customers who have been defrauded by companies charging hidden fees.
A Trump executive order in 2025 strengthened this policy and enforcement of anti-scalping practices. If L&E is found guilty of maintaining an illegal monopoly, it would likely break up. This would reshape the event industry by allowing for competition and lower ticket prices to everyone's benefit.
Making sure that concert venues are able to pick the ticketing vendor that they want and not be forced to pick a Ticketmaster in the interest and to allow for startups and entrepreneurs and new entrants to the market to actually enter the market and compete.
It's worth noting that venues would face efficiency issues and fragmented costs without vertical integration. This could negatively impact the logistics of tours. Long-term benefits still look promising if the event market continues to grow. Even stadium shows could thrive without corporate efficiency, as is evidenced by Europe's more competition-driven model. The outcome of the L&E case could set the tone for how to address monopolies in other sectors of the music industry. Ticketmaster's so-called hidden fees just makes this monopoly harder to hide.
As a ode to Taylor Swift, I will say we know all too well.
What's your take on Ticketmaster's role in the industry and the drama that comes with it? Find your seat in the comments.